All right, everyone. Welcome back to our RBT training. So today we're going to continue discussing DTT, discrete trial training, and exactly how we get prepared for that, okay? So when we choose our DTT programming, as we discussed, we try to use some standard assessment measure, okay? Something that's considered best practice. We've discussed using the ABLS, and we've also discussed using the VB map. However, there are a few other things that we want to take into consideration that might also influence our programming choices. So some of those things are that might come across for the behavioral analyst on the case or the teacher. I want you to kind of think about these pre-planning meetings. So let's hypothesize that we're getting a new student. What typically happens before that student walks into the classroom, right? So first you have a PPT, placement and planning team meeting where you look at a variety of things. You do background assessment review. So you might look at what services they've had in the past, what their program goals were, what progress, what skills he learned during those times, okay? What goals he's coming in with from previous agencies that we can build off of, okay? Along with that, what assessments have been completed, whether they're developmental or whether they might have been the VB map programming and placement type assessments, and what those results showed, so we can also use those in consideration. Also taking into consideration things from multidisciplinary team approach, such as occupational therapy, physical therapy, maybe some neurological things. Maybe taking into account too if there are some health factors that might play into things, or if a child maybe has some serious allergies. Certain times of the year we'll know that his behavior is going to increase and his ability to really learn tasks well and quickly is going to decrease. Or maybe that there is some cognitive component there, that their executive functioning has decreased, or maybe just their ability to learn quickly isn't going to be there because they really need more of that mass trial teaching format in order to learn best. Maybe there are some other things such as self-stimulatory needs that are going on, more of your occupational therapy type things where they're going to be highly distracted. So maybe you're going to have to take into play that this student is going to need something like a sensory diet that goes along with their programming. So there is just a variety of things that need to be accounted for when you start that planning process, okay? But that starts from day one at that PPT meeting. And then you discuss some goals and objectives based on those developmental assessments. So again, this is the ABLS, okay? And remember, when we went through this, we could kind of see where we really needed to target and isolate for our programming in order to meet our individuals' needs. But there are a few other things that we do need to take into account as well. Because before we even start DTT, our learner needs to have some prerequisite skills in order to perform. So if they don't have those, then we're going to initially teach to those first, make sure they have them mastered, and then we can really start our discrete trial training process. And we'll get back to what exactly those skills are, but what I want to continue with our baseline assessment process and our choice of training procedures, or training programs. So as we discussed, again, we pull from some sort of developmental assessment, such as the ABLS or the VB map, right? And remember, all of these have little codes here depending on the developmental skill area, whether it's manding, tacting, intraverbals, following directions, social skills, everything and anything, okay, within our developmental ranges can be linked to one of these. So your BCBA on the case or your teacher will then create what we call a program sheet. That's best practice, okay? I'm going to write this up here because this is incremental, some things that you're going to need to be able to do DTT. You're going to need a program sheet. Program sheet is going to provide you with a lot of crucial information that you're going to need to do your direct training procedure. This is an example of our program sheet. I had another one that I was looking around for, but we'll find it later. Oh, yes. So, program sheet. This was pulled right off of the ABLS. The code here is B6. This program sheet is for the program Matching Pictures to Objects, okay? So if we were going to go back to our assessment of basic language and learning skills tracking sheet, so remember we've got all of our developmental areas here. B is for visual perceptual. And what was the number on here? It was B6. So we're going to go over to B6, which is right above matching picture to sample, matching pictures to objects, okay? And so that's how this program was chosen. So most likely this child would have all of these filled in, and then B6 would be next. So once you identify that program, like I said, either your BCBA or teacher will create a program sheet similar to this that shows you all of the directions and information that you need for that specific program in order to teach that skill and fill in that little block in their building, okay? So that's number one. You need your program sheet, okay? Number two is, even though you've got all of these directions and ways to run the program, how do I know what I'm supposed to teach, right? Well, that comes down to here. This specific program sheet is directly pulled from the ABLS. And so there is a small spot for targets, but a lot of program sheets are going to be handwritten by the person that you're working with. So you might have something more similar to this, okay? What we call a set list tracking sheet. I'm going to write that up here on the board because that is also an incredibly important part to DTI, is knowing what set list or target stimuli, what things you need to be crucially working on, right? So we're going to say set list. Certain assessments, like the ABLS, all the way in the back of the assessment will have set lists that are already written out for you so that you can just go through and check off if that individual does or doesn't have it. More academic-based set lists might be something like the full alphabet, right? All of the letters from A to Z would be down here. And then you go through and you say, okay, you test them. How many do they know receptively and expressively? So if you show the card A, what letter? They're able to say A. Okay, awesome. So you check that one off as being mastered, okay? You don't even have to bother with it. That would be doing kind of your baseline assessment. And then you would go through for all of the letters, or maybe if it was numbers or sight words, right? All of those things. And so those are your sets of information that you expect them to learn. Here, with matching picture to objects, our set list is going to be a set or a list of pictures and objects that we expect this learner to work through. So we've got ball, car, hat, book, and then the list goes on. And so as you start teaching or using those objects or pictures or stimuli from your set list, you're going to say what day you introduced it or started working on it, okay? And that should directly correlate to your data sheet. This is our graph that shows and demonstrates data from your data sheet. And remember, there's a variety of different data sheets that you could be using, okay? This is more of your mass trial data sheet. So our program would be the number. So we've got some examples of programs here. And then you have the name of the program and then the prompt, which we'll get into the different parts of the program afterwards. But then in here, this actually gives you the set list, okay? So for example, here we have D2, which is imitation of actions. Our prompt is do this. And then our set list is written out here. We've got put doll in bed, feed baby, drive car, blanket on doll. Okay, so all of these specific stimuli are included in here to help increase this learner's ability to play functionally with materials. But so then next to it, you've got your trials 1 through 10, right? Frequency data. How often are they accurately able to respond or follow the direction, do this, okay? And so then once this data is filled in, then it gets recorded on our graph, right? According to the set list. And so our set for match to picture an object, remember, we've got this set list as well. Luckily this one, our graph has a handy set list down here that we can use as a cheat sheet too to be able to mark for the key. But our initial one was on 6-2, ball and car. They did wonderful. And then remember we used this previously to talk about how we needed to catch this a little bit further because this student was not making progress for far too long. But then their second stimuli that they were working on was hat and book. And we could see how well they were making progress with that. Okay? So we've got our set list. Number 3, as we just saw, an integral part of what you're going to use is a data sheet. And number 4, which you also saw is going to be a graph to assess your data over time and monitor for mastery. However, graphing isn't something that might always be asked of you. That might be something that's more left up to the responsibility of the person who is managing the program of the child that you're working with. Okay? All right. So those are the 4 main components that go into analyzing programs for running either DTT or also in general just knowing what programs that you're working on with children, okay? Because this doesn't have to just be for DTT, although this really is applicable to it. You know, you could use this incidentally. You could know that you're going to be working on identifying objects within the environment incidentally through play techniques and using more floor modeling, but you're still going to have a program sheet for that that gives you some basic directions in a way that you can increase the likelihood for learning with the person you're working with. You're going to have a set list, things that you expect for them to learn, labels within their environment, and then you're going to have a data sheet so that you can keep track of their incorrect and correct responding, and then hopefully a graph so that you can monitor their progress and mastery, okay? All right, so next we'll get into exactly what is DTT.